Is there any way you believe that Israel could have done this differently or done this as successfully with less civilian casualties?
They did it the best way they could, and some of the criticism has been, why didn't you warn the civilians who were coming in? You know, I don't understand this. Why didn't you warn Hamas that you're getting ready to come in so Hamas could execute the prisoners, right? Execute the hostages. Israel's combatant to civilian ratio is like no other country's. Our ratio in Iraq during the ISIS campaign was one ISIS fighter to 10 civilians. And in one case, during the last operation in Mosul to clear out ISIS, one ISIS fighter to 60 civilians. And we're
Wow.
criticizing Israel for taking out 1.4 civilians to one fighter.
Just before we started, Michael, you mentioned you just finished another interview where you were asked your thoughts on the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, saying that Hamas wasn't acting in good faith. I almost have no words, and I use words for a living, but how could anyone expect a terrorist organisation to act in good faith?
The Biden administration acts like this didn't happen to us. We lost 47 Americans on that day. They happen to be dual citizens, but the Biden administration continues to act like Hamas didn't kill Americans, like Hamas did not take Americans hostage. And we have Secretary Blinken. The only people that are afraid of Secretary Blinken are inside of the State Department, because he's warned them if they use the wrong pronouns, they would be fired. There's no other enemy, adversary, or terrorist group that's afraid of Anthony Blinken. He's milquetoast. So it's embarrassing. As a veteran of 3 wars, as a former intel officer specializing in terrorist groups, that a civilian Secretary of State would put more hope in Hamas than he does in rescuing our U.S. hostages.
Oh, it's appalling, and I'd add to that Joe Biden in terms of no one being scared of him, but I would say that people in his own department wouldn't be either. He's so unwell on so many levels, as I spoke about earlier in the show. It does blow my mind that we're living in this time when people find moral clarity so difficult. So difficult. It terrifies me, to be honest. We can all mourn the loss of every single innocent life. We can look at beautiful little innocent babies hurt and feel physically sick inside. But most people, I hope, understand where to apportion that blame. But sometimes I wonder.
When you're taught that life is cheap and that your mission is just to kill, how many civilians are there really in this fight? And we've seen recent polling where 70% of the Palestinians say that they support October 7th, and they would still vote for Hamas to be in power. And anytime you act like that with a terrorist group, this is what happens. It's embarrassing as a veteran. It's embarrassing as someone who's trying to look at this, to see that our leaders have lost to the Taliban, have lost to Qatar, have lost to Tehran, have lost to Putin, have lost to China, and they can't even handle a group like Hamas. How are they going to handle Hezbollah? How are they going to handle Al Qaeda or ISIS? It's embarrassing.
Yeah, that's so very powerful. Michael, thank you so very much for your time. Really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.